Chidanandji, you can begin.
Sir, Chidanand, sir, Swamiji, you have
Yes.
to unmute you.
Namaste, everybody. Good evening. We are to talk about learning. We have to today discuss this topic of gaining insights. Insight into ourselves. Really speaking, that division between ourselves and the outer world is not a serious division. Ourselves decide what our world is. The world is, in this context, a projection of our own thoughts. We are not saying we created the Himalayas. We did not create the Ganges. Then in what sense are we saying the world is our creation? Sometimes we say we are the world. Therefore, the language here has to be carefully understood. What the Himalayas mean to us, what anything that we see, anything that we hear means to us is highly dependent upon our own thought processes. Whether we like it or not, we have many likes and dislikes within us. The me in us, the separate self in us, is constituted of our likes and dislikes and our fears, our inhibitions, and so on. To a small extent, we are aware of these things that make the me in us. Alas, to a large extent, we are not aware also. All we know is certain things displease us and certain other things delight us. All we know is we would like to have some experiences again and again, even mechanically, and we abhor, detest, and avoid certain experiences again and again, once more mechanically. What we mean by mechanically is there is no intelligence in our either opting for repetition of some experiences or in keeping away from certain experiences. So this insight into ourselves essentially is becoming aware of what we were not aware of before. Krishnaji at places uses an analogy and a very interesting way of expressing. He says this learning involves watching a certain movement, and that movement is like the sea going out and then coming in. The sea goes out and comes in. I guess it's to be understood either way. You are on a ship getting close to the seashore, or you are on the land near the seashore. Either way, you find the sea coming towards you and then going back if you are on the land. If you are on a ship, you find the sea going towards the town, towards the port, and then coming back towards the ship itself. So there is a forward and backward movement. There's an outward and inward movement of thought. You and I, in day-to-day context, experience pleasant and unpleasant situations. At that time, if we closely observe how our mind works, we see that the mind engages in the so-called world outside and goes on concluding, what a nice this man is, what a terrible that woman is, how terrible that woman is, and so on. About the man here, the woman there, the place there, about things which are labeled outside. We call them things outside, people outside, places outside. About these that are called outside, there is a constant judging process, labeling process. The Himalayas don't label themselves, but we label the Himalayas. We label the Ganga. We label an African woman. We label a Japanese man. It is so hard for you and me to perceive things without labeling what they are, how good or bad they are. So this good world that we sometimes perceive, the bad world that we sometimes perceive are our creation. Thought meets with figures, images outside with those judgments. Then we also realize that thought turns towards the self. Oh, why did I dislike him so much? Why did I get attached to her so much? So there is a certain scrutiny, certain examination of the movement of the self itself. Both are necessary. We need to re-examine how thought behaved with respect to things or persons outside, and we need to re-examine how thought is creating labels about our own worth, our own identity, our own security or insecurity. There are times when we take our hand to our head, saying, what a fool I became. I became today the laughing stock of the whole town. Alas! See, thought is operating with regard to the self. Whether I really was foolish, whether I really was the laughing stock is a different question. Many a time you and I become so conscious about our self-image as though the whole world has no other business than to think about us. But we close our door, we close our windows and both the hands to our heads. We say, oh my God, this whole town must be laughing at me. I did such a blunder. The whole town has 100 other things to do. They might have laughed for a moment when you maybe put your foot upon a banana skin and fell. But next moment, the world goes on. They are busy with their own worries. But for next many hours, if not days and more, we relive those memories and various emotions rise in us. Without making my narrative too long, I wish to say that insights into ourselves are possible when we give the deep intelligence in ourselves a fair chance. There is intelligence in you, in me, in him, her, and everybody. Even a little child has intelligence, wanting to know things as they are. But thought is such an intruder, such a mischief maker. Thought is so impulsive. If we say to thought, shh, keep quiet, the most likely result is thought makes more noise than before. Thought is like a spring. You press it. The moment you take your hands off, the spring rises forth and reaches a greater height than before. Thought is like quicksand. You want to get out of the quicksand, that very effort makes you sink deeper into quicksand. Thought is a mighty challenge in our life. We are unable to free ourselves from our biases, leave alone freeing ourselves of our biases. Day in and day out, we are looking for such material, such information, such TV show, such WhatsApp message, which confirm our bias. A and B are fighting, and we have a strong bias for A, let us say. Then we want to hear more and more people who also are favorable to A and are against B. This in psychology is called confirmation bias. We want confirmation for the picture or the perception that we have of things. And we have no patience to listen to somebody who gives an opposite view. In the midst of all this, where is learning taking place? Learning is, alas, made into an accumulative process. Many of us, having received the usual university education, having passed many examinations, having read articles by others, and then maybe having written our own articles, so on and so forth, we pat ourselves on our back saying we are educated people, we are smart people. Alas, that smartness, that kind of being educated may be of no help at all when it comes to this learning that we are talking about. This learning is not accumulative. This learning is not additive, adding a little again and again. In the world, for a whole lot of functional skills, we need to add upon what we learned before. Nowadays, a lot of youngsters are trying to go to other countries than United States. United States in the last 5 decades or more welcomed and is welcoming a lot of Asians, even from India. Our boys and girls have gone and settled there. But today, many are going to Germany. And the preparation begins well in advance. Right when they are in 11th grade or 12th grade, if they are in a city like Bangalore or Delhi and some of those, there is Max Muller Bhavan there, they enroll for learning German. By the time they complete their 4-year engineering degree, they have also learned German. And they apply for some advanced study in some German university. And they have working knowledge of German now, which comes very handy. So in learning German or Hindi, any language, the learning is additive. You begin with a few words. I once began learning Spanish when I lived in California. Sorry to say, I learned 2 or 3 sentences and there it ended. I forgot many words. Now only sentence I know is se habla español. That's what I think it is. Here, Spanish is spoken. They put boards in some places. In USA, which is an English-speaking country, basically, there are many places where the shops, the institutions, or some restaurant, etc., have Spanish also. So they put a board there, se habla español. Español means Spanish. My learning began with that and a few words, El Paso, La Niña, El Nino, and so on, some words. But those who are more focused, those who are committed, go on building 100 words, 300 words, 1000 words, and so on. Additive. Learning Spanish, learning German is additive, add, accumulative. But to learn about our own life, it is to be understood that it requires certain insights, and on one hand it is not a matter of addition, on the other, philosophically it is said in this way, it is not in time at all. Because when the axis of time comes, their accumulation is talked about. Though you and I may be, in a sense, living in time, whether we like time or not, the clock continues, shows 6 o'clock, shows 6:30, shows 6:45, 7. There is time, in a sense, but this learning is not in time because it is more of letting go of false notions, false ideas. And in order that we may let go of prejudice, false ideas, let go of the burden of memories, psychological memories, because of which we relive our sorrow, we relive our hurt. There is a kind of memory which makes us go once more through the insult which actually had happened 10 years ago. The memories recreate that scenario. Who said what? How I reacted? How I shrank at the very mention of something that somebody made. In 1984, I gave up a job and joined an ashram. I was working in New Delhi those days. Before leaving New Delhi and proceeding to the ashram in Mumbai, I visited a cousin of mine, and her husband said to me, "So we believe you are leaving and joining an ashram. Are you escaping from life?" And I was proud that time that I already had developed an interest in Vedanta, in some high philosophy. I'm joining an ashram and I will become, I'll become so elevated. And I was proud of myself. But with not much awareness, but with a little awareness, I noticed that when my cousin's husband said that, he was not at all insulting me, not at all, poking at me. He was saying it, in fact, more in a, sportive way, sportive or just like, for fun. So you are escaping responsibilities and joining an ashram for comfort. Everything will be all right there, peaceful atmosphere, no real challenges of life like you and my wife and I have, and so on. They just, teasing me. It was very clear. I understood also that he was teasing me because he was such a nice gentleman, very friendly, very loving, very respectful in all ways. But it was a sentence to tease me. So you are escaping from responsibilities. And outwardly, I did not react. But inwardly, I was quite uncomfortable. Then I just said, managed to smile. All of us are good in pretending not to be hurt, but while we are inside, very disturbed. So please see, it's not like reading some book. That's how Krishnaji often said, don't read any book, read the book of life. It's not about analyzing our own reaction, finding out why I felt uncomfortable, why I felt like walking away, why I felt like not saying anything, whatever. You and I may analyze. Insight is not the product of analysis. Analysis brings right away into the scenario the conditioned self, which is the analyst, and the analyst is conditioned. The analyst, that is that self, that bit of the self, which now says, let me find out why I felt uncomfortable and so on. It's like during the British times, England would send a team to understand some scenario in India. Maybe when the Jallianwala Bagh 1919, I guess, happened, maybe a team came from London to Amritsar and they studied the whole scenario, talked to many people. However honest they might be, in all likelihood, they would have their own bias. They would have a British centric perception. For sitting over there in London, they got reports, and a lot of those reports were not very objective, certainly. A whole lot of reports about India would have been of such language, of such nature, that what the British did was to a great extent justified, and the people of India were, were possible, if not fully, were possible, put down a little bit. Last week, I think Henry Kissinger died. And everywhere in newspapers, on the internet, everywhere it was mentioned. Henry Kissinger, very close to Nixon, Richard Nixon. Nixon himself did not like Indira Gandhi. Himself did not like India. On top of it, this man, Henry Kissinger, who was smart in so many ways, who had encyclopedic knowledge probably about countries of the world. I have heard that he used to every day read some 10 to 12 newspapers. Every day in Henry Kissinger's daily schedule, an hour or two were spent to quickly look at various news pieces in 10 to 12 newspapers. So that's how he was made Secretary of State, a very powerful position in the system of United States. But every newspaper and media last week reported that during his years, those days, and later on when he was alive, but after many years, certain audio records of Kissinger and Nixon talking between each other were exposed. The Kissinger files or audios, Kissinger tapes, and they were not at all, complimentary to Henry Kissinger. He had used very unparliamentary words about Indians in a sweeping judgment. very unparliamentary, very unkind, rather vulgar words he used about all Indians. So, if Henry Kissinger, so learned, was habituated to talking like that so irresponsibly about a country like India, what about many others? So, the panel who would have come to Jallianwala Bagh would have, of course, written a report with finest language and all politically correct expressions, all that. But running through it all, there would be a certain bias. Likewise, the analyst, Jallianwala Bagh or Henry Kissinger were analogies. In the theme proper, if we try to analyze why we behaved the way we behaved, why we got so attached to some group and why we wanted to keep away from another group, wanting to have nothing to do with that group, all our choices and all our preferences, all our decisions, suppose we try to analyze, sorry, the entity that is analyzing is not impartial. It is itself a bundle of memories, a bundle of conditionings, a bundle of thoughts. Thought is analyzing, a thought is corrupt. It is like some theft took place in a village. Everybody was worried. Who is it who stole things from some 11 houses? Some gold from here, some silver from there, some cash from another house, something else valuable from a fourth house. In a single day, somebody had stolen things from some 11 houses. And next day, a very senior police officer on a motorbike was running around, driving around, riding around in that village, questioning everybody. Did you see who had come? Tell me who are the people who are outsider who came here yesterday. On the third day, somebody found out. This was not a real police inspector. A thief only came in the disguise of police officer. That is called thief turned police officer scenario. The analyst in you and me is a thief turned police officer. The police officer was not genuine, he was fake. Likewise, Krishnaji calls analysis paralysis. Analysis is paralysis, is one of his very intriguing statements. I remember for some years it had not made sense to me. That's how I value the years I spent in Rajghat quite a lot. Living for about 10 years, though I used to travel one third of the time, but other two third with good friends like Chabraji, who is here, Mukesh, Rajesh Dalal, Kabir, Jaitirtha, and so many from outside. At breakfast, at lunch and dinner, or during morning walk and evening walk, and so on, we used to discuss so many things. And during that, unknowingly, lot of things fell in place. Ah, how I did not figure out what this business of psychological time was all about. But when it one day became clear, it just became clear. Less like, what do they call it? The morning mist vanishing or fog vanishing. Then you realize, oh my God, Krishnamurti is not really difficult. When you understand something he says, he is so plain, so direct, so simple, to the point, and I thought it was very complex. On the contrary, he is very simple, like that. So coming back, this learning, this insights about ourselves is not through thought, not through analysis, but not through some dumb silence. Thinking that thought cannot solve my problem. If I say, I will not think now, I will not speak, I kind of suppress myself in some way. That can lead to some other problem. So this is a tightrope walk. Let me say this and conclude. It's a very delicate skill of some kind. It's comparable with a very delicate of a delicate act. In the Upanishads, they talk about a certain grass. The grass is called munja. From the munja grass, one has to extract the kernel or the central part, and one has to be extremely careful in one's attempt to extract just the central part. If one is too careful, one won't open up at all, open grass, that grass stalk or grass piece, because you have to open it and take out the central part. If one is a little aggressive, one damages that central part. The central part is called Ishika. So there is an expression in the Vedanta tradition, Munja Ishikam Iva, like extracting Ishika from Munja grass, where a bit of carelessness will just break or damage that Ishika. Here too, we need to avoid extremes, neither aggressive nor suppressed, but observe gently, give ourselves that space, that time, give ourselves that ambience. And when some inner voice is rising, don't say afterwards I will listen to you. It may not come again. When that inner voice comes, try to put aside everything and listen to that inner voice. You don't speak, the voice is speaking. Just listen. Don't try to influence that inner voice. Don't say, oh dear, say it like this. I would love it if you say a little differently. Then you are interfering. Let the inner voice speak. Let your wound speak. Let your hurt speak. Let your pride, let your elation, let your celebration, jubilation speak. Let it come out in naked so that we may actually see. You may actually see what it is made of. In that actual seeing or factual seeing, some letting go takes place. What otherwise we would have held in our tight embrace, swearing that we would never change our position, would weaken, would get diluted, would fall off, and certain learning takes place. And we say it is not in time because that learning is not to be frozen, not to be locked, saying, I'll not miss it. Out in the world, in many other subjects, suppose suddenly you remember somebody's phone number. You say, oh my God, with great difficulty I remembered it today, let me note it down. You may note down phone numbers and car numbers and house numbers and his wife's name, all that you can note down. But an insight or learning cannot be frozen in time. Well, even if you write, well, it can be part of a article tomorrow. For writing an article, you may note down whatever occurred to you in a beautiful insight. But the insight itself is to be welcomed and just be with that insight. It cannot be recorded, captured, frozen, so that it will be protected. It's not that some phone number or somebody's wife's name. No, these are some intricacies about insights about learning. Let me pause here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Harshad sir, would you please like to say something on this? Harshad sir.
Yes. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yeah, we are able to.
Thank you, Swamiji. You have said many things about insight. This word insight, even scientists, they have insight into matter and certain physical phenomena in nature. And there is a interesting story about Archimedes, who was trying to find out whether the crown the king gave, whether it was pure gold or there were some impurities. And he tried very hard to find out the what is whether the crown was pure gold or not. He thought a lot about it, but he could not find the answer. And then he left that problem. And then when he was having a bath and his mind was very relaxed, suddenly the answer came to him, insight, you can say, to find out whether the crown was pure gold or impurities. So this is an insight into the external world of science, and scientists have insight into matter. But we are talking about insight into our own mind. Because we human beings, we have what we call body and mind. And so this mind is made up of many thoughts, and those thoughts are made up of, because we have learned a language and we have a memory and we go through many experiences, and so and so we have many thoughts, thinking, which is not common to birds and animals. So we have thinking process within our mind, and through that thinking we try to learn about the external world, about the universe. Like the scientists, they learn about the physics and chemistry and biology and so on. But this insight which we are talking about is looking inward at our own thinking, and either it is the thinking is looking at thinking, then it is kind of an analytic logical process, and that makes our life more complicated. But there is a different way of looking at the thinking as it is arising, and that different way of looking is what Krishnamurti calls choiceless awareness, which is something similar to insight. That means seeing the thoughts clearly as they are and as they are forming within our mind. So that kind of insight, it requires clarity, silence, curiosity, honesty, and initially one needs to be alone to observe these thoughts which are arising. And so this is not taught in any school or college. And that is why, in spite of having a good insight into subjects like science and mathematics, people can still become very disorderly in their family life, and there's a lot of disorder. May even a scientist may go through some depression, jealousy, loneliness, and so on. And so this is common to all human beings, but some human beings, when they are very curious to observe their own thoughts, the beginning of a thought, and that itself, to watch the beginning of a thought, it requires something different than thought. it means it requires a real seeing, a real non-verbal, clear seeing into the nature of thinking. And so it means that when there is anger is arising, that can be seen while it is arising. And when that insight happens, when that looking at anger happens, the anger stops. So, this insight or perception or choiceless awareness or intelligence is not is non-accumulative, as Swamiji said, because it is from moment to moment looking at what is happening within us. And this is very, very important. And as I said, that it is not taught in the school and college, but people who are interested in religion, philosophy, psychology, they have the ability to look clearly at their own mind very, very clearly. And when we see our mind clearly, we can eliminate many, many problems which happen in our daily life of relationship. And when we understand ourselves, then there is a possibility of understanding other human beings also. And so this is what actual spiritual life is like that. And a person like Krishnamurti, he was able to help many, many people who came to him. It is because he had that insight, that clarity to look at the beginning of a thought and not with a motive. It is a motiveless, choiceless looking at what is, not what should be. So this is something is the real philosophy or religion is learning about ourselves, which is moment by moment looking effortlessly without any motive. So I think our mind is our great friend if it is seen very clearly, but our mind can be our greatest enemy also when it is not. It is very confused, very disorderly, and whatever we do out of confusion, it creates more confusion. So a person who gets angry will create more problem for himself. His health will deteriorate because of the anger, and also the relationship with other people in the family or in the office, it will be also deteriorate the quality of relationship. So this learning, the insight is the most important thing in our life. And with that insight, it can also help us in looking into insight into the matter, into the science. One can study any subject if the mind is very, very silent and very clear. Either it is a history or mathematics or any subject can be learned when there is space within the mind and clarity to see things as they are. So, this insight is very, very important, and mm, that is one needs to learn. Maybe it will not be taught, but people like Krishnamurti, when they talk, some people get interested, become very curious, and they begin to look inward, and then the real learning happens. So that is what happened to me when I first came into a book of Krishnamurti, and that made me very curious to look inward. And so this kind of learning one has to learn by being alone, by uh, very, very curious, and so on. So I have said enough thing right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harshad sir. Dinesh Waghmare, please unmute and say. Dinesh Waghmare, please unmute and say.
Are you able to
Yeah,
hear my voice?
we are able to.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a very vast subject, very deep subject, and in tradition they say that one should have guru to actually know what insight is. Anyway, Swamiji has said already briefed about the nature of the things. Harshad sir has also said what are the nature of things. I would like to make this my presentation a little bit more technical. Let us first see today's our subject is insight into ourselves and the art of learning. So let us first see what is the insight means. Insight, as per the Webster dictionary, Merriam-Webster dictionary, the act or result of apprehending the inner nature of things or seeing intuitively. In the case of insight, always intuition is more important rather than the analysis. This is very important. Intellectual working will be less and the result will be always intuitive. What the Cambridge Dictionary says, a clear, deep, and sometimes sudden understanding of a complicated problem or situation. Here he is adding to another aspect, the sudden understanding of a complicated problem or situation. As Harshad sir also said that automatically or unexpectedly you get a solution to a problem. What a renowned psychologist Gary Klein says, he defines an insight as an unexpected shift in the way we understand the things. In other words, an insight is new information. It is always a new information that challenges our existing understanding, causing us to re-examine the assumptions and change our perspective. Say, for example, earlier you believed that Earth is a flat, and now for the new message, the Earth is a sphere. So there is a shift, and this shift should be there. Means the insight has got components, suddenness. It has got a power to shift your whole old understanding. And further we go. Why is the key ingredient? Why? Suppose I am having so many data and I can see the trend in any that data. Suppose I am doing some marketing analysis or something. But if I don't know why, when I get figure and facts of the situation and data, I can make a new solution, or I can give a new proposal that this should be done. But unless I know why this is happening, suppose some shade is going down somewhere, why it is going. So why, unless the why is not known or cause is not known, we can't say that we are having insight into it. So third point is, now there is a cause. Insight gives you the cause, or at least cause or why. So suddenness, newness, cause, intuition, these are the important point in insight. Why is the key ingredient behind the observation data? If it is so, then it is insight. Insight shifts. So what we can say, shift in understanding plus unexpected reason. Now, when this is used for a thing you care about, suppose I care about my self-knowing, or aligns with what I care about. it becomes actionable insight. I may get insight about any worldly affair or any this thing, but that is not related to me. So it is of no use. Unless it becomes actionable insight. Actionable insight means when it is related to me or I am interested in. Suppose I am interested in the self-knowing. Then if I get the insight, then it is known as actionable insight. Now, this insight, which is actionable insight, gives upon a real learning. This gives the real learning. Now here comes the second part. Learning is a process that leads to change, which occurs as a result of experience and increases potential or improved performance or future learning. If there is a change, learning means there is a change in you which makes you more mature, right? So what is insight learning now? Let us go to the insight learning. It is a sudden realization of a solution to a problem. Because of its suddenness, insight learning is different from the trial and error learning, which requires more careful experimentation to arrive at a solution, right? So we have discussed about insight and learning and their meanings. Now come to the today's topic. Coming to the today's subject, my views of this subject is, first, we should be clear about the words insight and learning. Now, why we need insight into ourselves? Let us put a question to this. Let us question this. Why we need insight into ourselves? Definitely, if we are talking in reference with the or in relation with the JK's teaching, for self-knowing. It is clear that it is for the self-knowing. So what is self-knowing? To understand content of our consciousness or ego as it is impediment to the freedom. In this also, we are concerned about psychological content. Technical content is must for the survival. Now, psychological content is what? What I understand is the feelings and emotions processed by mind when you go for any relationship. This is also associated with the image you form about the object or person or whosoever it is. Any relationship, whether you go for technical dealings or personal or social relationship, will generate emotions and feelings. While retaining any transaction in memory, these emotions and feelings give strength to the memory. Memory remains dormant till an external stimulus provokes it. This Harshad sir has also pointed out that after some time, any stimulus comes and memory gets opened up. On provocation, thought is generated. Apart from this also, under thinking process, thoughts emerges, remains some time and then vanishes. So unnecessary thinking or without cause thinking is also there. And actually how it started by the outer stimulus. Now, when we say insight into ourselves, means have insight into the nature of our ego or remains choicelessly aware about the thoughts processed by us. When we process a thought, it is having technical emotions, feelings, and senses data. Now, when one is choicelessly aware, we can observe without bias. First, technical content for its appropriateness. Suppose I am pursuing a thought. Now, what is the content in that thought? Is it appropriate, or there need to be any correction, or there need to be any improvement to be done in that? Which develops this your process, or I can say the process word, this or habit, this develops in due course into right thinking. What JK has said, this is my understanding and my experience, that right thinking means you have to improve on your maturity, and then the thinking will become right slowly. It will become more appropriate. It will become more to the point, etc. Emotions is feeling. In most of the cases, emotions and underlying feelings are important. In case of any observation, it should be questioned why. Suppose I see my thought, why I am getting this thought. Suppose there is a song repeated again and again. Why it is coming again and again? Is there any unfinished business remain with this? Whenever a song is coming again and again, it is related to its sentiments, it is related to its feelings, emotions. So whether I like it, that's why it is getting repeated. Whether there is unfinished business implied in it, which I have not completed, that's why it is coming again and again. Suppose I like sad songs, and that sad song is coming again and again. Why I am sad? Question. Why I am sad? Is there any uh, why I am sad? Is there any underlying feeling which is not tackled by me till that I have to see? I have not gone through that feeling. I have not given remained with that feeling, and the energy provided to it, that feeling has not gone down. That's why it is repeated again and again. That I have to see. In case of any observation, it should be questioned why. Answer to this, if it is sudden, unexpected, and new, then it is insight. If it changes your stand, attitude, approach, belief pattern, etc., altogether or substantially, then it is insight. So, insight can be a simple new solution from existing thinking pattern to a new solution which came intuitively. Uh, so, when keep on understanding about our nature, pursue each and every thought, then mind becomes pure. A sort of order is established. So we have to see whether the insight can be because of the this working, all working. When we are working on it sincerely, we care for it, then it will come as a sudden solution, and it could be very simple and maybe on the intellectual plane. But later on, when you keep on doing this thing, then it will go to the higher dimensions. This is what my experience is. When we pursue with this our exercise, every thought of every thought, then mind becomes fear, a sort of order is established, and then we get higher dimensional insights. For this, most thoughts to be ended by seeing its relevance in present. Thoughts are all, say suppose we start with the chattering of mind. We have not done any exercise, or we have not done any working on this. Then this chattering of mind, when we work on it, we see each and every thought. So suppose one thought is having some unfinished business. When we finish it, the thought ends. Suppose there is some another thought in which some feelings are left to be tackled. When we remain with it, the energy to it gets reduced, its influence gets reduced, and we become free of it. And this is I call learning. When this happens, that I call learning. In case of negative emotions and feelings, we have to also see the its significance. As I said, suppose something is repeated again and again. Why it is getting repeated? When we see the significance of it and relevance of it in the present moment, or in the present, then it reduces its energy and content and its effect and influence on the mind. So this energy phenomena also to be is important basically in all this aspect, and that is to be seen. Even Krishnamurti was what he says. He says that any insight uh, gives you wisdom. And intelligence is the daughter of the wisdom. So, what he says, intelligence is the outcome of having an insight into the reality of what is, and the observation of that insight is wisdom, and the perception of it is truth. So, when we understand this thing, again, I will repeat in other place what he has said. Intelligence is the perception of truth from which arises wisdom. It is a daughter of truth, and intelligence is the daughter of wisdom. And this started because of insight only. So insight is the what we can say is the base from where all this emerges. Thank you. Right now, I want to say this much only.
Thank you, Waghmare. Chidanandji, would you please like to say last comment for 10 minutes? It's 7:06. Would you please like to say something? Chidanandji, would you please say
Yes,
something? Please.
yeah. I'm happy to hear all the remarks by Harshad ji and then by Dinesh ji. Harshad ji rightly began saying such insights take place in the field or in the context of scientists also. Yes, many scientists have later reported that they were themselves astonished at some understanding that dawned upon them. There are a number of such cases, as though some voice from somewhere came and said to them, revealed to them the answer to the question with which they were struggling for a very long time. However, this whole topic is quite hard to understand. Many of us know the phrases that it is not in time, it is not accumulative, it is moment to moment. But in a corner of our heart, we are not very sure what it really means. The topic is such, it seems to have its own depths, which we will be able to gauge thanks to some insights coming to us, not by more reading, not by some more dialogues. All these have the potential to bless us with an insight, but whether an insight happens, insight occurs, is not in our hands at all. And Dinesh ji always does a lot of homework. His approach seems to have a little academic quality, how professors define terms and going by dictionaries and other authoritative and authentic books. We really appreciate the homework you do for these sessions. And you also do not hesitate to express your own views. So it is a blend of what you read and what you yourself feel. On the whole, all of us agree that this is a vast subject and it is a matter of our being more attentive to our own life, our own reactions, and how 24 hours our thought operates in us. It's very challenging. At times, we are so receptive to things. At other times, in the same day, we become somewhat dull and we are hardly watching, hardly hearing, hardly listening to anything around. So there is a movement from inertia to activity to intelligent self awareness. Let's be more honest and sincere. I guess it is by being very honest that some obstacles to the operation of intelligence go away. But if we are not honest and we compromise with the principles, with values, I guess it creates more of some smoke in the air. And then in a life of conflicts, in a life where we are struggling with certain issues, how things should be and how things are, and there's a tussle between the two, then I guess insights are more difficult. Therefore, honesty and integrity can be a catalyst towards receiving insights, it seems to me. Thank you.
Pradeep ji. Pradeep ji, please unmute and say. Pradeep ji, please unmute.
It is unmuted. Am I audible now?
Yeah, audible. Audible, visible.
Thank you, friends. I visited many people and places with Swamiji today in this evening. Started with Swamiji. Then I have picked up certain, what I found was important reading JK about insights. You see, few points I will just say. Insight is not a movement from knowledge, thought. First thing, very important. Let's be very clear about it. We are all knowledge lovers. We have so much knowledge. We go on thinking about the knowledge. So insight is not a movement from knowledge, from thought. Another is insight dispels disorder. When JK says disorder, he talks about order. Order is that gives me certain space, certain freedom. That he calls order. We have to think about it, whether in our life this happens. Then he says, without insight, nothing can change. Then another important point I found was, will that insight alter my whole structure and nature of my being? My whole structure and nature of my being. And insight reveals our attachments. The topic was insight into ourselves. Ourselves, we can say, because that includes myself as an individual also. But you are the world. When you realize in your life that I am the world, then ourselves is the right word to find what is happening to the life of a man in general. Insight reveals our attachments. Then he talks about whether it is partial insight or holistic insight in the general life, not only man, but general. So partial insight I have enjoyed in my research career when I was working on different crops. It beautifully works when you go empty-headed, almost. You simply stand there before plants and just observe them. You get insight and you get beautiful, something new and innovative comes to you. Then what I feel is that thinking about insight can be misleading, but insight into thinking definitely. So for me, insight is something revealed to you while going deep into some system that clarifies order working for that system. So seeing is the key, and in seeing you find whether it is apparent or real and actual. One has to see. So likewise, then Dinesh was talking about intuition. So intuition, JK says intuition is different than insight. When he says intuition is something when you feel something is right, what you are thinking or what you are understanding is right, that is called intuition. So likewise, these points we all have to think about these points, how relevant these are in my life. our life, my life to start with. Thank you very much, friends.
Prasad sir. Prasad sir, please unmute and say.
Sir,
Yeah, you are.
I have raised my hand mostly to record my appreciation of Swamiji's talk. I think I got an insight into his approach. In the sense that, his talk is full of what we call similes and metaphors. For example, he said, analysis is like a quicksand. The image of a quicksand really describes very tellingly the process of analysis. The more you struggle, the more you analyze, the more you sink into the quicksand. I really liked that image, and that is why, similarly, he said, it is like a spring. Yes, the more you press, the more it jumps up. We all know that. So the process of analysis is tellingly described, very, understandably for others. That is what I mean. And then he also gave, Krishnaji often talks of thought going out and coming back. I try to imagine how it goes out and how it comes back. You are standing in the shore, and what is going out and what is coming back. But Swamiji said, you can imagine it both ways. You are standing on the shore, that is one thing, or you are standing in the ship, in the midst of the waters. So I think that clarifies a lot more about that image which Krishnaji uses. Thought going out and coming back. And then he also talked about that fake policeman. The analyzer is like, when you analyze anything, the analyzer is like a fake policeman. Because he is a thief, actually he is a thief, but he pretends to be the policeman. So it is so true, because we all like X-politician or Y-politician. And behind our likes lies our analyzer. The basis for our likes is our analyzer. And we don't realize our analyzer could be a thief, not a policeman. And actually the problem lies there. I genuinely like an ex-politician. I genuinely dislike Y politician. And I don't realize how I actually have come to like this gentleman and dislike that gentleman. There is this. So when he also talked about Jallianwala Bagh, when the British agents sent their reports to their bosses in London, obviously they must be British-centric. The reports must be British-centric. And when we are disliking Kissinger, are we aware that possibly we are India-centric? Maybe we have access now to their secret dialogues between Kissinger and his president. they were genuinely feeling that way about India, Indians, and Indira Gandhi. I mean, because they are the secret dialogues, they were at least their impressions. Are we ready to see why they came to those conclusions? We are India centric, and so we obviously disliked whatever they thought or did about India. So he said, after a long time, he had an insight into psychological time. Yes, we talk of psychological time, but one day we get an impression that yes, this is psychological time. I may be right or I may be wrong, but I thought sometimes I get my boyhood scenarios before me, and I find there is nothing in common between me and me as a boy. It is psychological time, but that period is in my mind. That is only psychological time. That way, all of us, because biology also tells us that all your cells have changed. They change every 1 year or 2 years, or I am not very knowledgeable about that, but they change. So there is nothing in common between, let us say, Pradeep Verma today and Pradeep Verma as a boy. That is psychological time. But all his boyhood, childhood, they are very much in his background now. They affect him also. They affect his actions also. If his boyhood friend comes now, he will do whatever he can for him. That is, the boyhood is affecting him, but it is not existent. It is no longer there. So that way we get an insight. And insight is not additive. Yes, that is not additive. It has to be fresh every time it comes. But one thing, I really don't really understand whether it is not additive, because in the technical field, it is additive. We all agree. In the psychological field, we say it is not additive. It is fresh. But once I get an insight into thought that it is like quicksand, will it not be with me always? Whenever I approach thinking, when I think about thought, will this insight not be with me? This is actually not my insight. It is borrowed insight, because I borrowed it now today from Swamiji's talk. Will it not be with me forever? I think it will be with me forever. That is my impression. So we keep on repeating the expressions of Krishnaji, but it needs to be thought over why he is making those statements. They may be truths for him, but are they for us? Thank you, sir. That's all.
I request Pradeep ji to say something. Harshad sir, you wanted to say something? Please come first. Please, please go
Yes.
ahead.
Yes, I have also a kind of a metaphor that if you want to jump, you press the ground and the ground pushes you up. So if you want to jump, you have to press the ground. That is the action. and the reaction is given by the ground and you go up. So similarly, but if we are not on a solid ground, if we are on a muddy surface, and then when we press the muddy surface down to come out, we sink deeper because the muddy surface doesn't give a reaction force for us to go up. So I feel thinking is like that, like a muddy surface. The more you go into thinking, you sink deeper into thinking, and there is no insight as long as thinking is there. So, and there's another metaphor that if you want to look clearly at the bottom of a lake, the water must be clean and the water must be still, not moving. So, when the lake is very still and with very clear water, we can see what is at the bottom of the lake. And even if one bubble, air bubble, which comes from the bottom and comes up, we can see the whole thing. So, similarly, the state of mind which we need is a clear, silent mind to look at the bottom of the mind, which is like unconscious. We are not aware of unconscious mind, but only when there is the silent, clear mind, it can look at whatever is happening now as well as what is coming up from thinking. So, and another one small thing is that one lady was traveling in a train and she was talking loudly, and she was not talking at anybody in particular in the train, but she was remembering somebody whom she met, and then she was very angry, and people who were in the train, they thought that this lady was mad because she was talking a lot and she was not aware of her own thinking, that she was just talking at nobody in particular. And then there was one man who was watching this lady, and when the train stopped and that man came out from the train, and he had an insight. He says this lady's mind was very much chattering and she was talking a lot out of that chattering and she was not aware. And this man said, my mind is also like that. It is chattering, though it is not talking loudly, but inside it is talking. So we're not, so as long as the mind is chattering, thinking, there is no insight. Okay, I have said enough. Thank you.
Let us end the meeting at this note. This is a very good note, and I end the meeting with this note. Modak, please end it.